JTC 100 Media and Politics Part 4. So let's continue now mapping the rise of what we now call electronic campaigning and some of its effects on governance. Obviously, digital communication has become a critical campaign tool for candidates. The web, social media, and other digital tools essentially, I think of it as they eliminate the middle person in the equation, the middle people, the middle institutions. That middle position was primarily occupied by journalism in the past. So the news media, they're still there, but we're seeing huge changes, particularly new ways that people are getting political information. They're getting it from news sources all the time. So due to networked digital communication, politicians can now distribute their platforms, essentially their promises that they make to voters if they're elected. They can do that directly to anyone with an internet connection. That's kind of the idea. So this can include using like longer length speeches and messages on a platform like YouTube that would usually have been cut short into like shorter sound bites for a newscast or even ignored, and so the meaning would have been lost. One problem, if a candidate makes a mistake, like saying something racist or degrading to some demographic group or something, the clips can be viewed repeatedly by the public, and then that can, of course, lead to very bad feelings. And sometimes it can be something very innocuous, where some creative person out there on the internet or some group picks up on a pattern and then they seek to exploit it, which we've seen quite a bit. Now I want to show you a little video clip which appeared on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show. I want to catch up here with my slides. Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show during the last presidential election campaign, and it features Scott Walker, a one-time Republican candidate. He's the governor of Wisconsin. And, well, anyway, you'll get the idea right away what's happening in this video.
The other big political news this week is that Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker became the 15th Republican to announce his candidacy for president. Of course, like all candidates, he spends a lot of time talking about the budget and immigration, but there's something else that he always seems to talk about.
I went to Kohl's department stores near our house, and I bought something at the price it was marked at. So now I know over the years, if I'm going to buy a shirt, it was $29.99, I go to the rack that says and now it's $19.99. I remember to get the flyer out that we got mailed at our house.
Well, you get 15 or 20, or if you're really lucky, 30% off.
Tonette usually is with, and she'll reach into her purse and pull out some of that Kohl's cash.
And next thing you know, they're paying me to buy the shirt.
I mean, you know, in a way that's really unfair. You note that candidates have been repeating speeches for thousands of years. I mean, why would you rewrite a speech from scratch every time? But with this new technology, that practice can make someone look pretty silly, right? So this sort of thing is fun, but some wonder if it has contributed to like this overall devaluing of societal positions that once held unquestioned authority, you know, that they're making fun of these leaders. Is that good? Is that bad? It's kind of up to us to decide. And of course, for quite some time, candidates have been taking advantage of the ease of getting out information and asking for donations and things on websites, which can have links to campaign ads. And they can freely push issues out there to the public without news media interference. That's always something they don't want. The candidates can provide information to the news media, in that case, if they're wanting to communicate with the media. And like I said, they can raise funds. And then, of course, there's always good old-fashioned email. Feels kind of funny to say good old-fashioned email, but it's been around for a long time. So that's a way to push out events and alerts, oftentimes sent to these handy campaign supporter lists, and efforts to get people out to vote. Bottom line, all of this allows politicians to communicate directly with the public without editing and gatekeeping by the news media. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, more on electronic campaigning. One of the biggest impacts of electronic campaigning has been fundraising. Barack Obama and his campaign team, they were considered to be a fundraising machine in the 2008 and 2012 elections. Both Obama and Romney, later Mitt Romney in his campaign, they raised well over $1 billion in 2012, and they were pretty even. And in fact, Romney he did. We'll find out about that in the next segment. He did raise a bit more. But here's the difference. More of Romney's money came from big money donors. Obama also got a lot from the deep pocket donors, but Obama got more from small money donors, people who give less than, say, $200 at a pop, right? So Obama and his team, they did this in these two elections by perfecting online fundraising, what's called the New School e-strategies. So these are strategies like micro giving, making it easy for people to donate very small amounts by placing these little donate buttons everywhere they can, and really not saying, hey, look, you need to give us $2,000. They're saying, hey, can you give us $20? And even you can donate every month. We'll take it out automatically. Obama's campaigners combined that with what's called multi-channel marketing. So in that, they hit a variety of media platforms, from traditional media to the latest, networked online media. And finally, the campaign empowered their supporters to do what's called peer-to-peer personal fundraising, all on their own, creating built-in incentives to encourage these people to achieve their fundraising goals. So by offering these tools through their website, the campaigns vastly expanded the money network by tapping into the networks of their supporters in the most effective way possible, and that is, research shows, peer-to-peer. You are far more likely to give money to a candidate that your friends and peers publicly support than you would be to give money to an appeal from the campaign itself. So, if your cousin contacts you and you respect your cousin and they support a candidate, you're more likely to pay. So the end result, this opens up the political process really to anyone who cares to join, makes it much more easy to participate than it was in the past. And it really is, again, a self-perpetuating and self-funding money machine. So Obama got less from big business and big players, but he still kept up, and he also kept up a lot of interest amongst a lot of people. And I want you to hear from Peter Brown. This guy grew up in Fort Collins. He now works in Washington, D.C. and New York with his own company called the Brown Miller Group. They're a political and communication consulting office that really watches elections and campaigns and works for these politicians and knows and understands how Obama was so successful.
Their approach was to integrate the other functions and the other departments in a campaign into the social media infrastructure, like Facebook. It enabled people to organize online. So in other words, on a campaign, you've got the field, which is the door knocking and the phones, and then you've got the communications, which is just communicating with people, and they combined the two. So you could actually organize people on Facebook, and essentially what became an app in the campaign. And by that I mean you can invite friends to join. They can go on there and talk about a house party that they're going to put together. You can even print phone lists out of the program that they created. So in other words, it was a much more organizational aspect to the communications. It wasn't just a message driver. In other words, it was actually integrated with the other parts of the campaign.
And I like you to hear from people like Peter Brown, just to know that this is a job that's out there. This could be something you might be interested in doing someday. If you're interested in politics and communication, it's something you could pursue. Okay, so that was really a lot of discussion about the Democrats, but the Republicans, what were they doing? Well, for one thing, they weren't moving as quickly on the sort of communication, funding front, but they adapted quickly. So what they were finding was that the Democrats were light years ahead of them, and they really had to catch up, especially for the 2012 presidential elections. What they did about it was they knew they had to build better email systems, and they did. And they also knew that they had to set up more opportunities for micro-giving the way Obama's folks had done. The trouble is, research is showing that people who are experts in these sorts of skills, they tend to lean Democratic, and that's why the Republicans were a bit behind. But one strategy more recently is that some Republican candidates, especially in the 2016 elections, they actually started sharing digital analytics experts. And we know by 2020 they'll be well caught up and doing fine. All right, that ends Media and Politics Part 4. Part 5 is next.